Let's get right into it. Amazon has a crazy impact wherever they tend to go. And we've been isolating and thinking about where and predicting, speculating where Amazon is going to land. And Greg, I think we have a question that came in from James Jackson, and he participated at the Think Realty Leadership Circle a little while ago.
Remember James?
Yep, and we were talking about Amazon. So what's the question? And let's give it a whirl.
Yeah, so the question was that he had read that Amazon chose Charlotte as their new home for their new corporate headquarters, and it's not true. They didn't choose Charlotte for their new corporate headquarters. It's a very interesting subject. We've talked about it before. This idea that Amazon has got they're like playing The Bachelorette, right? They got every major city in America kissing up to them to get them to set
That's
up
right.
their new corporate headquarters. They're going to keep the one they have, but they're going to add a second one, and they're such a beast of a company that it's funny. It's one of these things where 10 years ago they were a beast. 5 years ago they were a beast. They're going for everything, and they haven't made a selection yet. But I find it really interesting to look at where they're thinking about going, because every place they've chosen to think about going has actually got an interesting story, and we'll cover them one by one in this segment over time. But because James highlighted Charlotte, here's what happened in Charlotte. They announced the final commitment to doing a large distribution center in Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's not a corporate office distribution center, so it's not the same thing as the monster that they're going to bring into one of these cities. And I don't even think Charlotte's even in the running. In fact, I know they're not for the corporate headquarters. But the distribution center is something that's been in the works for a few years. The final straw, the final nail in the coffin, it is happening now. They've chosen the site. It's going to be 2,500 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how we played it. Okay, so the first thing, that when you see an announcement like that, we talk a lot here about this idea of lift, right? What kind of lift does a market have? When you have the opportunity to invest in a place, can you forecast housing demand in the future? I.e., can you forecast places that people are, where people are going to, where people are staying, where jobs are going? Like what indicators can you read in the macro trends?
Mm-hmm.
And I find this, by the way, to be the most fun, the most fascinating part of my job as a strategist. I work for folks who don't know what we do. Our main business is representing large investment funds, professional investment funds, helping them to choose markets and then actually deploy their capital and acquire and build very, very large portfolios of rental homes. And so we actually do know what we're doing. And I do get paid to help people identify winners, and lift is one of the major things. But here's the deal. So Charlotte, before any announcement by Amazon, Charlotte is a major city in the Southeast. The Southeast overall has lift. Okay, there's a lot of population leaving the upper Midwest and the Northeast, the places that are colder and more expensive, that are making their way down like a glacier makes its way down, gradually, slowly, but unceasingly,
Mm-hmm.
people making their way down for things that are real. I live in Charlotte, okay? So I went from Westchester County, where my taxes went from $9,000 a year to $19,000 a year in 5 years.
Jeez.
I moved down here, got a bigger house, bigger lands, taxes that are less than what mine were in New York 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Quality of life is great. Climate is great. It's also a real city, right? Real airport, real industry, and so forth. So this Charlotte thing, where people are literally moving down from points north to come down for things that are good because their friends and family are saying, it's pretty good down here. Come on and check it out. And by the way, you can actually get a direct flight and you can have a real job, and it's a real city. So the lift, the glacial migration, check number one, it's got lift by being a Southeast city. The second thing about Charlotte is that it is the second biggest financial center on the East Coast. So specific, New York obviously is the number one financial center, but because Bank of America is anchored here, and Wells Fargo anchored here, major banking entities are here, and they have all of these satellites. They're like a sun that has a whole solar system of planets and moons and satellites that surround companies that big. I mean, Bank of America is a big company. Everyone knows it. How about like 1 in 4 humans in the country have an account with the Bank of America?
That's
either
right.
a mortgage or a credit card or a checking account.
Yeah.
They're a beast. But because of all the infrastructure that you need to have, okay, think technology, IT, data systems, broadband, because of all security, data security, because of all the things that they needed to install in Charlotte to have Bank of America stay here. A lot of Wall Street firms are saying, hey, we have 1,000 employees in New York. It's way expensive. Let's just do a little fun math. What would happen if 30% of our workforce was in the South instead of being in New York? Ching, our profits just went up. Our stock price just went up. Let's move 30% of the workforce. That's happened, okay? Companies have moved some of their people down. Then they have meetings, and everyone down here at the meeting is like, hey, man, it's awesome down here. Why don't you take the transfer from New Jersey down to Charlotte? It's pretty cool. Companies are saying instead of 30% of the workforce, let's bring 50% of the workforce. I believe where it's going is it's going to keep going like that to where in the end, there's going to be 50 people in New York. They're going to keep an address in New York. They're going to have the whole workforce down here. That is an industry anchor. All right. So the migration that's happening is because of quality of life, cost of living, but there's a very specific channel of migration happening of businesses going from point A to point B because they can't really go to other places in the Southeast because they're not as good for finance as Charlotte is. Mm-hmm. Okay. So check the box. You've got lift times 2. All right. You with me?
So the lift for me as someone that's listening to this is super, super important of where I need to invest, right? Like right now, for an example of Atlanta, and I'm definitely with you, Greg, but I want to make this point too. For example, it's really, really hot. I need to be looking at, say, Birmingham, a Chattanooga, if I really want to capitalize for the next 10 years. But keep going on this lift thing.
Well, I happen to live in Charlotte. So for me, the double lift I'm already very aware of, right? Like we complain about the traffic, okay? I smile. You know me, right? It's like, ooh, I'm sitting in traffic. This is awesome, right? All right. These people live in houses, right? The triple lift, and this is where the Amazon things comes full circle. The triple lift is that when Amazon comes in and they put 2,500 jobs, that is 2,500 good jobs. It also means Amazon has anointed Charlotte. It also means that Charlotte, like I checked into this, and this is an example of the kind of research you can do when you're thinking creatively. I started looking on job posting boards, starting from Google, asking about what kind of jobs Amazon is hiring for right now. And I found a really interesting job, and the title escapes me, but it was something like Amazon Prime same day technician or something like that. Not technician, but what it described in the job ad, and they had a lot of these things posted, where these are the people, Abby, they're going to be wearing the roller skates, that when I order a new charger for my iPhone, they're going to be flying down the aisle to grab the charger, to bring it out to the short-term drivers, the nearby drivers who are going to bring that thing to my house because they want it to be easier for me to go on Amazon, order the charger, and get it in 2 hours than it would be to stop by, Best Buy or Staples on the way home. And so I kind of feel like, and this is a real secondary thing, but it's an amenity, right? They're not going to build these things in every town. So certain towns are going to have like 90% of what you find on Amazon. Like you can say, Alexa, I need a new charger for my iPhone, and like ding dong, like 2 hours pass and ding dong, and they show up at the door. I feel like it's one of the things that causes, is anybody going to move to Charlotte because they can get same day service on Amazon? No. Right. But when you start piling it all on, that whole thing of lift times 1, times 2, times 3, piling on the positives, what that means is that I can pretty much buy any house. When somebody says, well, what kind of house? Go buy a good one in a good school district and pay market price for it and sit on it for 20 years. I'm not into getting a steal. I'm into the land grab. When I know that this is going to be more valuable for sure, and I say for sure to myself, I can't guarantee anybody anything, but my money goes where I feel like it's a sure thing. Triple lift, quadruple lift is what that gives me, and Amazon just piled on. Yeah, just provides that.
And I feel like it's piling on, it's adding fuel to the fire in the best way possible, right? Like you want there to be significant lift. You want there to be significant reasons why you should invest in a city. Amazon is one of those reasons. All right, Greg.
It's super common sense. People are going to live there. And so I buy a house, they have to live in my house. It's not complicated.
Right. Super simple. Do the math. Buy long term. Follow Amazon. That's ultimately, I think, the name of the game. Greg, we got to end the show. Thanks so much, man. Always a pleasure.